Okay, I'm gonna read a little passage here. We'll jump right in. This book has its origins in the summer of 1976 when I purchased my first baseball cards at the gift shop of Lowry's Seafood Restaurant in Tappahannock, Virginia. I remember very little about the cards, a 3-deck rack pack of Topps baseball cards wrapped in cellophane that allowed the customer, in this case me, to see the cards on the top and bottom. I do remember that one of the visible cards was of Jim Palmer, the star pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles, who in 1990 was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. If I still had that card in 1994, and if it were in mint condition, it would be worth between $3.50 and $7, according to one of the many baseball card price guide magazines that now exist. Palmer may be buried in a shoebox somewhere, all dinged up and dog-eared. If he is, he's virtually worthless. But I don't lose sleep over it. Back in 1976, I was not concerned with maintaining the cards fresh off the press look, let alone its investment value. As an adult, I came to realize that the hobby I pursued as a youth in the late 1970s had grown into a billion-dollar business. Cards now were traded like penny stocks and hoarded by investors who dreamed of cashing them down the road. How, I wondered, had a simple children's pastime been transformed into a cutthroat industry dominated by adults? So that's from the author's note to this book, Card Sharks: How Upper Deck Turned a Child's Hobby into a High-Stakes Billion-Dollar Business by Pete Williams. It came out in 1994. As you can see, I've got it on interlibrary loan, and I'm really, really excited about this book as somebody who always liked Upper Deck, who always liked their cards, who's been collecting them pretty much my whole life, at least since I was 4 or 5 and I first started collecting cards at all. And who really, really likes them, just really likes the products. I've observed, I think, in the past that if you take the Upper Deck 1991 cards and you put those next to every other collection that came out in 1991, they look easily the least dated of any of them, which is really interesting. I never really thought about why that was. I just thought that's one company that was modernizing a little more quickly than the others. But this book gets into that, I think. I'm just getting to that part. I'm really just got into the part where they actually start talking about Upper Deck, because there's sort of a lot of background. It gets into the history sort of before that, and so I'm kind of learning a lot of things I didn't actually know before. I think the first chapters, they talk about how, the Duke family, the family that owns a Duke Power Company and the Duke University is named after, before they got into, the power industry, they were big tobacco people, really big players in the tobacco industry of the late 19th and early 20th century. And, around the time that they were going from putting tobacco in tins to putting it in boxes, because that was cheaper in terms of, lower production costs, and they could sell it cheaper. When they first started shipping it in those, the product would get kind of crushed, so they needed to put in a card as sort of a little buffer there to kind of absorb some of the shock. And the Duke family, the son at the time who was part of the business, came up with the idea of putting in a card, and not just a blank one, but actually putting like an actor or actress on it to make it kind of a premium, sort of a collectible, kind of add value to the product. And what you started seeing was other tobacco companies using baseball players, and that sort of being where baseball cards actually started. And I never had any idea about any of that, but I find it pretty fascinating stuff to get into. But apparently as early as 1909 through 1911, you had baseball card collections that had about 400 some players in them. So it goes way back. But yeah, you don't get the sense that it's going to necessarily be the title Card Sharks, how Upper Deck turned a child's hobby into a high-stakes billion-dollar business. It's very catchy title, but you definitely don't get a sense that there's strictly negative connotations associated with that. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily going to be a sharply anti-Upper Deck book. He talks a little bit in the preface how, the interviews with people from Upper Deck, it was kind of hot and cold a lot of the time. One moment they'd be cordial, one moment they wouldn't want to talk to him, or they'd want to only do it, send me the questions and then I'll send them back to you answered, they'd be cagey at times, because I think he does report on some of the questionable things that Upper Deck was doing in the early years. But on the whole, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a really, an anti-Upper Deck polemic or anything like that. He's genuinely interested in what took place at the level of business, at the level of competition, and a level of just developments within the industry that really shaped the hobby, and the real kind of pivotal moments. But yeah, I'm not that far in, but I'm definitely planning on reviewing it when I'm done. So I'll probably do that in a couple weeks. But yeah, it's really interesting. What I'm really getting at it so far is that the idea of cards being something that you get when they're new and then they become valuable. I think he's suggesting it's really the 80s when that kind of started. That sort of the rookie mania thing going on really kind of began with people realizing that some of these rookie cards from the 50s, especially these Mickey Mantles, were being bought for really, really high prices. And so kind of the line of reasoning would have been that, okay, so the rookies now, in the early 1980s, by say 2010, are going to be worth a lot, which, as he points out in the book, doesn't quite follow, because it's a very different deal when, in the 50s, people either throw them out or lose them or kind of ding them up because they don't really expect them to be valuable collectibles, versus now people are making that assumption. But yeah, I think about my own collection, probably there's a pretty good chance the most valuable card in there is the Brett Favre rookie from the 91 collection, and they say that's worth a little over $5. Something a little more recent, a rookie like Frank Gore, who's came out in 2005. He's probably Hall of Fame bound. That's worth a little over $2. So yeah, football cards, they definitely, the number of them out there acts against the hyper increase in value that some people would expect. But it's very strange. Value is one of those things. I don't know if this is anybody else's experience, but I feel like once, no matter how little you care about it, once you get it in your head, then suddenly, once it's on your mind, it's on your mind. Because until I was about 25, I certainly never looked into how much any cards I had were worth. I just couldn't be bothered to look into it. But then with enough people just kind of asking me about it, eventually I started looking into it. And now I look at some cards as being more valuable than others, even though I'm pretty sure I'm not actually going to sell these. So, like the rookies, now I'm kind of a lot more preoccupied with rookies. Really back in 2013, fall of 2013, I think I bought a whole bunch of cards for my 1997 collection, and none of them were rookies because I just wanted to expand the collection as much as possible. I just wanted as many different players, and so all the ones I bought were the 23-cent ones, and I bought them because they were the 23-cent ones, and that was just kind of, for me, what I was going after was just having that big collection with a lot of players in it. But it's like now, it's like, yeah, I look at my 97 collection, and so one of the first things automatically on my mind is who are the rookies in here. But yeah, Upper Deck is cool, and I'm really excited to read this book and review it for the YouTube channel.